So there's going to be a youth convening called the Africa Youth Climate Assembly. And this is going to be happening on the 1st to the 3rd of September, which is coming right before the main summit happening from the 4th to the 6th of September. This particular convening or assembly for young people is going to be dedicated to African young people who are coming from all over the continent and some from beyond to come and discuss how does this climate issue affect young people specifically from the developing countries, but in particular from the African continent. My name is Stella Bogonko, CEO Jacob's Ladder, and this is Green Jobs Africa. We cannot speak about climate without speaking about the future. It's going to be something that is affecting us now, but will either get worse or better depending on what we do now. And obviously the most affected people are going to be the young people. And in Africa, that's going to be a majority of the population because over 60% of the population is young and only getting younger. And this is the reality check that we need to have. That in 2050, 1 of every 4 people in the globe is going to be African. Imagine that. So how will they digest the whole issue of climate? They cannot be left outside of these conversations. And that's why some brilliant young people came together and organized an African Youth Climate Assembly, the first of its kind as well, in partnership with the African Union, to be able to convene young people to have a discussion, to distill what the thematic areas that are being discussed at the main summit are going to be. For example, how does renewable energy in Africa affect young people? Did you know that we do not have green hydrogen engineers in the country? And yet we just recently launched a green hydrogen plant, one of the biggest deals that was signed at COP27. Yep, right here in Kenya, and we do not have green hydrogen engineers. That's why it's very important for us to have these conversations, not just at the global level or at the continental level discussing investments, but trickling that down to say, what do we need to do to bridge the gap between academia and industry? If there's going to be investments, which is the main essence of the Africa Climate Summit, those investments will require some form of skills. And that's what we do as Jacob's Ladder, to raise awareness around the need for skills, the need to create jobs, the need to make sure that we are matching these investments with jobs, with understanding what skill sets are going to be required both now and in the future. So the Africa Youth Climate Assembly is focused on distilling these topics around climate finance, renewable energy, Africa, carbon markets, for example. What does that really mean for young people? Did you know that every time we have to get to know what carbon credits are being, accumulated on the continent, and in particular in Kenya, that we have to ship in people to come and do the audits, meaning we don't have that skill set in the country. I'm raising these particular areas to show you that there are opportunities, which is one of the brilliant approaches of the Africa Climate Summit, that we're not coming from the approach of challenges and we do have challenges and there are impacts that have been there, adverse effects that have been there because of climate, but there are amazing opportunities. And these are some of them. I'll just mention 3 of them. For example, we have a workforce of young people that have the skill sets that will be required in the future. If we train them now, like I said, if they're going to be green hydrogen projects that are being done on the continent, we need to be able to have curriculum that is readying this kind of young people, engineers who are able to meet that demand. If there's going to be development projects that are geared towards decarbonizing and carbon removals, we definitely need to have young people who have skills and the knowledge to be able to participate. Otherwise, we'd need to ship in those skill sets from other continents, something that has happened so many times over, but we can change the narrative if we begin to prepare ourselves. And that's why I'm excited that young people refuse to be left behind during this Africa Climate Summit. They said, we want to have our own sessions. We want to be able to have our own conversations and not just talking. They're also coming up with a declaration to say, this is what the African youth are saying. And because obviously you cannot do that within 3 days, these amazing young people have been having consultations across the continent with different kinds of regions to hear what are the people in the north saying, in the north of Africa saying about climate? What are the island states saying about climate? What are the countries, for example, that are affected by, drought saying about the issue of climate? What are the countries that have issues around energy in terms of either do not have the requisite energy or are currently using fossil fuels like Nigeria and South Africa? What do those young people who are employed in those kinds of environments or careers or fields, how do they transition from being those working in the oil fields moving to renewable energy? How do they get affected? Those are some of the kind of conversations that are going to be happening at the Africa Climate Assembly. It's not just going to be a meeting of a few young people in Nairobi. It's going to be virtual. So please check out their pages, and do stay tuned on our pages. We'll also keep you posted on how you can connect, share your views, comment, and give your perspectives of some of these conversations that are going on the continent. We as Jacob's Ladder Africa are actively participating at the Africa Youth Climate Assembly and the main summit as well. But in the Africa Youth Climate Assembly, we are co-hosting a side event on green livelihoods, because we believe that while there are conversations around investments, how that materializes to the young people is through jobs and livelihoods. And so how do we trickle down these conversations to make sure that the young African person, the average young person in Africa, resonates with the issue of climate? We've done research to ask young people perception reports. When we've asked young people in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Egypt, asking them, what do you think about climate? How does it affect you? How do you want to participate in climate? And there's always this convergence around economic opportunity and climate, which means that the majority of young people that are unemployed on the continent are looking to solutions, providing solutions, and being able to address the issue of climate, looking at it as an opportunity to also empower themselves economically. And that's one of the reasons why we also, as Jacob's Ladder Africa, came up with an incubator program where we take the very early stage startups, young people with brilliant ideas who have no access to finance, no access to people who can be able to give them the information to help move their idea from just an idea to a tangible business. We take them through the process of changing their mindsets, helping them understand what are carbon markets, what is carbon credits, how do I connect to my solution to an idea that I have around climate smart agriculture. We do the work with them and for them to enable them to move from just an idea to a bankable business. We will be there at the Africa Youth Climate Assembly and at the Africa Climate Summit. I hope that you'll be there as well, whether virtually or in person. And whether you are present during the days or not, please do get a hold of the outcomes of the summits and make sure that you know how it affects you and how you can position yourself, especially as a young person, because the decisions that are going to come out of these summits are going to affect you. But most importantly, they're going to produce or provide opportunities for you. My name is Stella Bogonko. I'm the CEO of Jacob's Ladder Africa, and this is Green Jobs Africa.